how New Jersey taxed its people during the war to support the Patriot cause, but also how counterfeiting came into play. And it's very interesting because I work for the state of New Jersey. I work for the Department of Treasury. So I'm actually doing a history of the Treasury. So when I was doing this actually tied right into some information and some research I had done on this, which is very fascinating. And as you well know, New Jersey had been printing money before the American Revolution, its own script, okay? And that money was supposed to be backed by specie, gold and silver. Of course, as we know, it was not. But what it was backed by the good faith of the colony of New Jersey and then the state of New Jersey, as with other colonies. When the war came to New Jersey was still printing currency because it needed to fund the war effort. And it's an interesting fact that we have some numbers, but between 11 and $13 million in specie, meaning gold and silver, only existed in the colonies prior to and during the American Revolution. But $258 million in continental and state script was printed during the war. So let's look at this. $12 to $13 million in hard cash, but I'm printing $258 million in script. I cannot back it. What backs that is the good faith that the people have in the government, whether it's the Continentals or whether it's the state governments. Okay? As the war went on, the state of New Jersey was asking people that had the means, that had the hard currency, to donate, to buy bonds, okay? To give money to the war effort here in New Jersey. Now just remember, 1775, 1776 we're talking about, beginning of 1777. They were asking for this, okay? Monies to come in that would be reimbursed, okay? 1777, after the two battles of Trenton, Assunpink Creek and Trenton and Princeton, we're now going into the beginning of the war. 1777, the Continental Congress, they start printing a lot of money, a lot of script, as does the states, all right? But the money is not there. But what, like I said, the faith is there because, as I just said, people in the state of New Jersey and Patriot cause have said, listen, we won at the two battles of Trenton, pretty much. We've won during the Princeton campaign, okay? The British are now, Washington's moved up to Morristown, okay? The British are throughout New Jersey in outposts, okay? They're moving in, but spirits are still high. They had been almost at floor level, they're now higher. Money is being printed. New Jersey and some of the other colonies, 1777, get the idea that we are now going to tax the citizens of the state of New Jersey and other colonies. Now, specifically for New Jersey, there were two reasons to tax. Two reasons. Obviously, the most obvious one is we're trying to get money, whether in specie or in script, to support the war effort. I have to get money to supply the Continental forces, to supply state government, the state regiments, the militia, okay? So that money's coming in. The money is printed, like I said. It's not really backed by specie, but what it's backed by is the good faith of the state of New Jersey and with the continental currency of the Continental Congress, okay? There's a second reason. Remember what I just said? A lot of currency was being printed and printed and printed. As you print more money and don't back it with hard cash, eventually you have hyperinflation. What the powers that be in the Treasury in New Jersey and some of the other colonies got together and said, listen, a lot of money's being printed here. We need to take money out of circulation. What better way than to tax all of you on whatever you have at your home, whether it's a plow, whether it's horses, mules, anything. Even individuals were taxed who did not give military service. So what's happening, New Jersey said, let's tax, let's have that money come in to our coffers, even though we know it's not backed by hard currency, but we're taking it out of circulation, okay? But what was happening is, they're taking it out of circulation, the Continental Congress is still printing continental currency. New Jersey currency and state currency from other states is tied directly into the Continental currency, which again, the good faith of the Continental Congress, all right? Do you see how this ends? Continental Congress currency, state currencies, tied into it, good faith. People believe that it's backed. That it's backed by hard currency. That if you present that note, because it's a promissory note, if you read these, it's a promissory note. Okay? It says, this bill entitles the bearer to receive 60 Spanish milled dollars or value in gold and silver. So it's a promissory note, just like our currency is today. What you have in your pockets today is a promissory note that it's backed by hard cash, gold and silver, but more important, the good faith of the United States government. Some things haven't changed, okay? But what happens here as more and more currency is being printed, hyperinflation starts. And where does this come from also? Counterfeiting of currency. The reason I bring JT again, John Taylor, from my first speaking engagement, Colonel Taylor, because the British, after they moved into Philadelphia, when the Continental Congress removed out of Philadelphia and down to Maryland, what happened was Continentals left behind the paper, the inks, and the engravings of the currency at Philadelphia. The British come in, they find it, they're speaking about this, and they said, we're going to have an idea. Let's have another front to this war. Let's counterfeit currency, flood New Jersey, New York, and other colonies with currency, but specifically with New Jersey currency, which we found the plates, okay? And the continental currency, because we have the plates. So let's hyperinflate, and that's what they did. That's what they did. There was a huge counterfeiting operation in New York Harbor and on Staten Island. Huge amounts of continental currency was being printed, and it was printed on the good paper, okay, the continental paper. It was a combination of threads and some silica within the paper. There were specific inks that were used, and the engraving plates. Now, when you have the engraving plates, the ink, and the paper,
You can't tell.
exactly, you really can't tell the difference. And I will tell you, there was only one difference in some of the counterfeiting operations for the Crown. The Crown would use a better grade of paper or ink than what the Continentals were. That's how you could tell if it was counterfeit. If you received paper money that was of a higher grade paper and looked better, and the engraving was sharper, mainly knew that was a counterfeit, because the continental currency with the engraving plates was not as sharp. Okay? So, Colonel Taylor, in 1779, he finds out about a plot from one of his operatives on Staten Island, and he writes a letter to George Washington. And he includes a $60 bill that is being now continental, that's being printed and flooded. And now, I don't know if you know anything about New York and New Jersey, but Kingsbridge in Westchester County goes right over into Bergen County. huge amounts of money, continental currency, was being flooded into New Jersey via Bergen County and Elizabethtown. Huge amounts. This was causing major hyperinflation. And I'll show you this list right here. Remember I said about 1777? January 1777, a $100 in continental currency was worth $95 in gold and silver. Almost a dollar, one for one exchange. In May of 1781, $150 in continental currency was worth 13 shillings in specie. 13 shillings. From $95 to 100, almost one for one match, to 13 shillings in 4 years. And I will show you one here in 1780, when the depreciation really started to move down. The British said to themselves, listen, New Jersey is ripe for the taking. Remember, we had spoken probably previously about the battles of Springfield and Connecticut farms. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. Near Elizabethtown, that was the last time the British mounted a major invasion of New Jersey. And one of the reasons that they did is because they saw the huge drop, the depreciation in money. People had no money. If you were a patriot, I could have a bushel of money and I would come back with maybe 2 bags of salt or coffee if I could get it, okay? The London traders, and I don't know if you've ever heard of that term. London traders were individuals within the colonies that were dealing with the British for hard cash. London traders were your Tories or your neutrals. And in the eyes of patriots, if you were neutral, you were a Tory. There was no ifs, ands, or buts. You were either a Tory or a patriot. What's happening is the British, the Crown forces, have the hard currency to pay for goods and services to the London traders. The London traders are selling their goods and services, and you probably heard this term also, the cowboys and skinners. Those were the raiders. Those were your vagabond militia forces. Because some people think that one was patriot, one was Tory. No, there was no patriot about this. It was one group was self-serving, the other one was Tory. They would steal, take from you whatever they could. They would sell it to the British forces. The Tories would sell their goods to the British forces for gold and silver. So you might think, well, more gold and silver is coming in, more specie. It's coming in, but it's in the pockets of the Tories and the neutrals. It's not coming to the Continental Congress. They're trying to get money from the French, from the Dutch in loans, okay, from the Portuguese. But that money's not coming into the continental coffers, into the state coffers. And any money that had been in the state coffers prior to the war, at the beginning of the war, is being hoarded by individuals. That's why there's no money. People were saying, well, I'm not going to give this to the state of New Jersey. I'm not going to give this to the Continentals. I've got to keep this for my own. And I'm not going to tell anybody about it. So that's why it further depreciated. There was absolutely nothing backing this currency. Absolutely nothing. And one of the big reasons was because of the massive counterfeiting, the second front, I call it, that the British put against the Americans. Not just putting troops in the field, not just campaigns, but another campaign to destroy an economy. If you destroy an economy, you destroy a person's will to fight. And that's what was happening in 1780. And that's why the British invaded again over Elizabethtown Point into Connecticut Farms, which is now Connecticut Farms, Westfield, Union, New Jersey, around those areas, in Springfield today. They invaded. But what they did not realize was that even though New Jerseyans were almost down and out, they didn't have money, they still rallied to the cause. And they pushed the British back. The militia rallied to the cause with, I call it, those ragged Continentals that had stayed the course. They beat them back. But again, the reason for that invasion, that last invasion, was because of this huge, huge depreciation in currency. And then after the war, folks, after the war, it took us almost more than 10 years, more than a decade, to get our economy back on track, okay? For people to start trading again, for money to start flowing again. And probably one of the best things was that the federal government eventually took over the debts of the state, because now the new country is we're a debtor nation. But that's good at that point to be a debtor nation, because if we pay off our bills, we accept the debt from the states, and we can pay that off, we've established a credit rating. Unfortunately, like I said, in New Jersey during the war, we didn't have that. We just kept printing money and money and money. There were 2 and 3 acts every year from the state of New Jersey. An act to raise $200,000. An act to raise $150,000. An act to raise another $300,000. So I'll cancel one issue and I'll reissue another. I'll cancel that one and reissue another. What am I doing? I'm just putting more money into circulation. Nothing to back it. And eventually people realize it's worthless. It's worthless. So that's in a nutshell what took place in New Jersey during the war with the counterfeiting.
Thanks, Russ. Anybody have a question for us?
Russ,
When did the Continental dollar came in around 1777?
Around 1777 they started really printing heavy. And
The actual coin, though, it was like
well, there was coins, and then there was the paper. Mainly it was the paper that they were printing. They just kept printing and printing and printing, and in weird denominations, 1/3 of a pound.
still a British pound.
Well, it's still, they were used to using the pound, so.
You know, and 1/3 of a dollar, 1/4 of a dollar, 2 cents, and that was like on your state side, on the continental side. They just kept printing money, 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 just printing, printing, printing.
Personally, I'm thankful. I have a Continental dollar coin, and it's probably worth $15,000, $20,000. It's appreciated since the Continental dollar.
Yes, yes, and I'm sure they would have loved to have had that as well.
They would love to have had it now.
Got a question over here?
Russ,
Yeah, one here.
how much did this play into the whiskey rebellion? The whiskey rebellion.
Yeah, in 1794.
So they were taxing, they're trying to raise money.
Yes, they were trying to raise taxes in Pennsylvania as an excise tax on the production of spirit. Yes. Well, look at it this way. The farmers and those that were producing that spirit or spirits, they felt that in producing this, we should not be taxed. There should be no tax on this. So there was still the mindset from the American Revolution, like I said, 1775, 1776, New Jersey was asking, and the states were asking their folks to give us money, okay? Support the war effort. But then they started producing the money, the continental currency, the state currency, and like I said, with the depreciation. But the reason they taxed was really a large part of it to get money, to get all that money out of circulation. And it worked for a while, because if you look at this chart, things stabilized for about 1.5 years. But it only works for a while, folks, because if you keep printing money, you're just feeding right back into the same problem. And that's what happened.
You haven't learned anything. We're still doing it.
Yeah, curious thing is Article 1, Section 10 of the Federal Constitution tells us only gold and silver are means of exchange. And this is reflected right here. Joseph Story of Harvard Law in his commentaries, and Samuel Stanhope Smith and his, hammer that point home. It's got to have a stable means of exchange. But they lived through this. They saw it. And in 1933, through some act, somehow, without a constitutional amendment, it was undone. And now look what we have. Where your dollar in 1933 is worth less than a penny in buying power.
Yes, and if you lived in this time, like I said, and you weren't, and all you had was either state script or continental script, and you didn't have hard cash, but your neighbor was a Tory or a neutral and was trading with the enemy, a London trader, and what do they have? They've got hard cash. They have hard cash. Yep. And talk about hard feelings.
Weren't there a lot of Spanish silver coins?
Yes. I can tell you what was used, the Spanish reals, Spanish dollars. We call them Portuguese Johnnies or Johans. They were gold coins, silver from Holland, some gold from Holland as well. Yes.
Half Jews. Half Jews, what would that be?
The half Joes are what we call the half Johans, and it's mentioned in a letter between Washington and John Taylor, where Washington says, I thank you very much for your intelligence. I've received it. I thank you very much for the counterfeit $60 note from your operative. And he said, I need additional intelligence, so I have included 2 gold Johans for you to use, but please use them sparingly and make sure that the individuals you use for intelligence are with us in our cause. And that's pretty hard to do, especially when people are doing it for money and not love of country.
Any other questions?
I found one connection in my book to all you Atlantic County guys. Silas Ireland, many of you are Ireland descendants, that's an old Atlantic County name. He was charged with counterfeiting continental currency.
And I will share one other thing with you, and it was prior to the American Revolution. Like I said, I work for Treasury, and we're putting together a history of the New Jersey Department of Treasury, which we never had before. So in my research, I found out the great theft of 1768 in Amboy. It seems that James Skinner, who was our treasurer back then, kept the money, gold and silver, and bonds backed by the crown in his home. It came to about almost 9,000 pounds. Well, there was a theft from his home. And investigations were done, and no one was ever convicted or tried. But it's interesting to find out that we believe that reason was, and as people say, was it an inside job? And I said, could be because his brother was Cortlandt Skinner, the Attorney General under William Franklin. So we just wonder, that money was never found, and also counterfeiting was rampant back then as well. It was rampant back then as well. It's really, really interesting what you find in the sessions, the legislative sessions, and I would tell you all, you can go on, because I always share my information with everybody, go on to the New Jersey State Library. Under research, look under the Rutgers Law Library, and you can find the sessions, the earliest sessions from the 1600s, late 16s, all the way up to the present time. Look in the Revolutionary War period. And they're kind of lengthy, but if you read those sessions, it's really fascinating what was going on here in New Jersey during the American Revolution, not just financially, but it's really fascinating. So if you get a chance to do that, it's under the Law Library section.
Thank you, Russ.